Hello everyone, Revolver Guy prepping for poor people. Yesterday I did a little quick video on my chickens and just some eggs I collected from them. And I had a viewer send me a message and ask some very good questions. And I was going to just email her out some information. And I got thinking about it. They were great questions for a beginner. So I thought I would do a video today and answer some of these and go into a little more detail. I don't claim to be an expert. I've had chickens for a long time. I've had them over the years, 2 or 3 different times I've had them, and I've probably had chickens now for the last 5 or 6 years, and they've always done real well for me. So whatever I'm doing must be working. Like I say, I don't claim to be an expert, so if I say something you don't agree with, that's fine. Leave me a comment. Tell me what you think or what your opinion is. My opinion with chickens is that they're one of the most important things we can have on a homestead to be self-sustainable and as a prepper. I mean, if a SHTF situation happens, having chickens and having eggs nearly every day would be huge to your food supply. They're full of protein, and they're just such a good thing to have, especially when food could be limited. So anyway, I'll get into it. Some of the questions she asked. Forgive me, I'll be looking down. I wrote a few notes down so I didn't forget anything. I have a few things. I'm going to be posting some links in the comments with this video to some are just some pictures of things. It's not anything you have to go buy. It's just pictures of a brooder box and a brooder lamp and even a mobile chicken coop. I'm going to post them just to get an idea of what they look like and maybe an idea of what you would like to build yourself. If you can build it yourself, you'll save a lot of money. It'd be very easy to have several $100s in just a few chickens if you go to some place like Tractor Supply and buy everything there. But chickens don't need anything really fancy. They're really easy to take care of. It's really easy to build the things for them. And honestly, every couple of days you go out there and collect your eggs, and there's not really much to them. Make sure they have water. So anyway, to get into some of the questions, I was asked, what are some of the best breeds? Well, there's a lot of good breeds you could have. I picked out 3 of my top favorites, just ones I know how they are, and I'll go over them. First one is a Rhode Island Red. These are a great dual-purpose chicken. You can raise them for meat and eggs. They're very hardy in cold and hot weather, and they're usually pretty friendly. They're really easy chicken to take care of. I've had them, several of them over the years, and they're a pretty good egg layer. They'll lay about 200 to 240 eggs a year, and they're not broody at all. They won't sit on their eggs, but they're really really good chicken to have though. That's one I would definitely recommend. Another one would be a Buff Orpington. Those are also a dual purpose bird. They're pretty heavy and they're fairly hardy also. They'll do good in cold or hot weather. They're friendly. They don't lay quite as many eggs as a Rhode Island Red. But one thing about the Buff Orpingtons, if you have a rooster, they're a great chicken to have because they will sit on their eggs. So if you have a rooster, that'd be one way that you could hatch out some new chicks every year. And you can mix the chickens. It's perfectly fine to mix breeds of chickens. There's nothing wrong with that at all. And as a matter of fact, for a while I was doing that. I've kind of changed what I'm doing now. I may go back to it though. But I had 2 or 3 of them Buff Orpingtons, and they would sit on the eggs. I had several other breeds of chickens, mostly Rhode Island Reds, and I had a rooster, and they would sit on the eggs. The Buff Orpingtons, they'd sit on their eggs and the Rhode Island Reds' eggs and any egg that was in there. They'd sit and hatch them. So that's a really good chicken to have if that's something you're looking for. If you can't have a rooster or you just want a chicken that's really going to lay you eggs, then my favorite and the one that I have right now is the Isa Brown. That's ISA BROWN. Those are the best egg layers that I've ever seen. I've had a lot of different breeds of chickens. And I tell you, they are by far the best. I'm getting 300 to 350 eggs a year. I mean, they very rarely stop laying. They'll lay just about every single day of the year. The ones I have now are 2 years old. They slowed down a little bit this past winter, not a lot, and I'm still getting just about an egg a day from them. So they're also very hardy. They're cold and hot weather doesn't seem to bother them at all. They're very friendly, very easy chicken. You can pick them up. I mean, my wife picks them up and pets them and everything. They're just easy chicken to keep. They're not broody at all. As a matter of fact, since the Isa Brown's a hybrid, they actually recommend not breeding them. I know a guy that bred a Rhode Island Red Rooster to them, and he actually had some chicks, and they did great, and they laid eggs just about as well as the purebred Isa Brown there. So I don't really know why they recommend against it. I don't know, but that's also something you could do if you had a rooster and some Buff Orpingtons. You could run both the Isa Brown and the Buff Orpingtons together, and you would have a prolific egg layer and a chicken that will sit and hatch. If you can run a rooster. If you can't, I would definitely recommend the Isa Brown, though, because they lay so many eggs. Well, one question that was brought up to me, is that they couldn't have a rooster. And if you can't have a rooster, what do you do with a SHTF situation? Because obviously what chickens you have is what you're going to have, and you won't have anymore. And that's where I would say what I'm doing is I've leaned into the Isa Brown chickens because they lay so many eggs that you don't have to have as many. And what I do is every year I buy more chickens now, and I kind of phase out the ones I have when they're 2 to 3 years old. And every year I'll buy, I usually try to run about 20. Right now I don't have that many, and so I'll buy, 8 or 10 chickens a year. And then every year I have a new flock coming in, and I still have my old flock. So that way, if we do have a SHTF situation, you've got some chickens that will lay for you for 2 or 3, maybe even 4 years. I think if we get that far into a situation and things aren't back to where you can get food and survive, I don't think we're going to have a very good chance of making it anyway, to be honest with you. So I think that that's just a good way to do it. I was kind of tired of having a rooster around. I've had a lot of roosters, and they all turn out, after they've been in with them hens for a while, they get kind of mean. They get protective. That's just their nature. They get hard to deal with. And I just found it easier to go every year and buy just about a third or half of my flock and replace it. And it's not really that expensive. You can usually buy these Isa Browns at Tractor Supply. You can buy them for about $3.50 a piece, something like that. So I'm talking about $20 or $30 a year. It costs me about that to keep a rooster. So that's what I do, and that way I keep these really good egg layers, and they lay big, huge brown eggs, and I really like them. So that seems to work out well. Another thing was the number of chickens. If you live in a city or town limits, or you're just limited to the number of chickens you have, then that's okay. But that's why it would be another good idea to have these Isa Browns, ones that are going to lay a lot of eggs. If you can only have 6 or 8 chickens, then you want to get as many eggs as you can out of those fewer chickens. So I think that the breed will be a big thing with that. And then another thing will be your coop. If you're limited to how many chickens you can have, then what I would suggest, and I posted a link, I'm going to post a link in the comments of a picture of a mobile coop. And it's really not anything that would be difficult to build. It wouldn't have to be really big. 6 chickens, you could probably, or even 6 to 8 chickens, you could probably build one that's about maybe 3 foot by 6 foot. And if you look at the picture, you don't have to build it exactly like that, but if you look at the picture, it's a really neat design. You can make it to where this coop, you move it every couple of days. You can move it around your yard, your lawn, whatever, and you don't really even have to plant anything. These chickens will peck and eat, and you just move it every couple of days, move it to a new spot. And it's real easy. It's not real heavy the way they build it. And you just keep moving it over. You don't have to move it far. You just move it far enough to where they're in a new spot for the next day or two, and they'll peck and eat, and you'll use very little grain or corn that way. And the chickens will be just as organic as you can, as they can be by doing that. I feed mine a little bit of layer pellets. They need the calcium. They need extra calcium in their diet for their eggshells. So I do suggest always giving them some pellets. You can buy pellets that don't have any chemicals in them, and that's what I do. And I usually mix a little bit of cracked corn in there. Of course, my chickens right now, I have them in a barn-style coop because I have a fence around mine. I live out in the country, and I have a lot of room, so I built a larger place for them. And, I feed them a little bit of feed. I go out, they peck, they eat the grass and weeds and things. And so they're probably getting about a 50-50. But that does save me a lot of money on feed. I've got 10 chickens, and 100 pounds will last me well over a month, probably a month and a half now. So, but that's something to think about. The main thing is just when you build a coop, build it lightweight. It doesn't have to be anything really fancy. A roll of chicken wire and some 2x2s, and you can really build something easy to move around in your yard or your whatever property you have. And they're really good fertilizer. If you have a garden, it's great. Put them in that garden, starting after the garden comes off or before you plant, and they will scratch that up and fertilize it, and it's a great thing to do. Matter of fact, I've been thinking about building myself one for my garden, just to let the chickens in it when I'm not growing anything, and they'll help replenish the soil, and they'll keep it dug up and keep weeds out of it and things. So kind of something to think about. It'll make it easier on you, especially in a SHTF situation. When you go to plant that garden, you're not going to have a way really to till it probably. So the more weed free it is and the softer the ground is where the chicken's been scratching, the better it'll be for you. But the next thing I want to talk about was a brooder box. Raising baby chicks is not hard, but it takes some time. You have to pay attention to them. You have to check on them a couple of times a day. Make sure they have a constant supply of feed and water, and you also have to make sure that their brooder lamp is on and keeping them warm. And it doesn't have to be anything fancy. I posted a picture of one that it's not the one I made, but it's just like the one I made when I first started raising chickens. And all it is one of them totes that you get at Walmart, one of them Rubbermaid totes with a lid on it. And I cut the center of the lid out, and I put a little screen on top of that. And you can raise up 4, 5, 6 chicks in that really easily. And if you get one of the bigger ones, you can raise a few more. And it's just a real simple thing to do. It just has to be something that, when they're really little, the lid's not a big deal, but it don't take them long. They'll be jumping out of that thing. So, but that's just a real simple idea to do. As far as the brooder lamp goes, you can buy one of them at Tractor Supply or off Amazon or something. They're about $15 or so. The only thing I'm going to suggest there is make sure you get a red lamp to put in there. These chicks need to be about 90 degrees when you first get them, and for the first week or two, and then you can kind of raise the lamp up and cool them off as it goes. You can tell that whether they're too warm or too cold, because if they're really cold, they'll huddle right underneath the light. And if they're too hot, they'll stay way away from the light and never get near it. So just one of the things, you have to keep an eye on them, and like I say, make sure they always have food and water available, and a little bit of wood chips in the bottom. And like I said, they're easy to take care of. But you need to make sure you have a red lamp. And it's because chickens if you ever heard the term pecking order, that comes from chickens. And chickens, especially hens, will peck each other all the time. If they see a bloody spot on another chicken, a red spot, they'll peck that, and it's just something they do. So if you use a white light, those red spots show up. If they just get a little something on them and they have a little spot, well, the rest of the chickens will come along and start pecking that spot, and they will kill that chicken. I've had it happen. I've even had it happen with a red lamp, but it doesn't happen very often. That red lamp will kind of hide those spots, and they can't see them, and they won't be so apt to peck each other. One thing about if they are doing a lot of pecking on each other, it's even under the red lamp. Usually it's because they're kind of crowded. So you want to make sure you have plenty of room. You may need a couple of those Rubbermaid containers. If you're going to put 5, 6, 7 chicks in it, when they're really small, you can leave them in there together. But as they get bigger, once they feather out, they won't need the lamp anyway. So then you might want to separate them and just leave 3 or 4 in each one of them large totes. Because the more crowded they are, the more they're going to pick each other. So anyway, like I say, that's all there is for a brood box. It's just a box. I built one myself. I raise a lot of chickens, so I built one that's 3 foot by 7 foot. I have a big brooder box. I can raise several chickens in it at once, and it's not really hard to do. Like I say, you just gotta make sure you check on them and pay attention to them, and you can order your chickens right through the mail. The only problem with doing that is I've always had good luck doing that. The only problem is usually there's a minimum order, 10 or 15. So if you don't want that many, you may have to find somebody else that wants some, and you go in and put an order in together. Then you can just split them. That's what I did the first time I ever did that. And so you get however many you want. You get them, raise them up, and it's enjoyable. They're cute. They're funny little animals, and it's a joy to raise them. And they're not hard to raise. And for what you get out of them, all them eggs, I tell you what, there's nothing like it. So, well, I hope I answered some questions on chickens and getting started in them, and what I need to know or what some beginners might need to know. If there's any other questions, I surely wouldn't mind helping you out. Just leave me a comment and I'll try to answer them if I can. And thank you for watching. If you don't care, like and subscribe. And remember, all gun laws are unconstitutional.